What's going on, guys? Out in the garage tonight, I was going to start putting the body of the truck back on the frame, and while I was moving all the parts I've got parts over there on the cart, parts piled over there, I had to get the cab out of the corner and I had to move all that stuff to get it. And I was getting ready, moving stuff around, and one of the boxes I picked up was this one. This has my anti-roll bar in it. I figured before I start putting the box and everything on, it's gonna be a lot easier to install this anti-roll bar with nothing in the way. So, little change in plans. I'm gonna put this on first before we do the body, and I'll show you what I picked up. This is a Rhodes anti-roll bar. It's 1.5 inches. I got this from Jegs. It's chromoly. It's a 36-inch long anti-roll bar kit. Now my frame's only 24 inches wide. In my head I'm thinking, when I bought it, I wanted to be outside the frame, so I bought a longer one thinking I can just cut it down. So hopefully I can do that. But I'm going to get this thing put on first before we do the body. And from my previous video where I built these cribs, I did take the chassis off of them and I took 3 boards out, so I dropped it down 4.5 inches, and I think I like this height a little bit better, a little bit easier to work on stuff. It'll be easier to get the cab on and off. Not that I plan on taking it off more than I have to, but it could happen. Let's tear this box open. I haven't even pulled anything out of it yet. All I did was tear the top open. Even though it's chromoly, it's got some weight to it. I don't know where I'm going to put this. Sure what else is in here. Because this packaging looks to be torn open, I'm just wondering if anything fell out. I think that's it. Okay. So I mean, yeah, the package is torn open, so everything's kind of fallen to one side. Guess I can tear it open on the floor. There's the bushings. Those are the vertical lines. As you can see, there's quite a bit of assembly required here on this particular kit. Frame mounting tabs. Axle mounting tabs. And then this is a weld together kit, so you do have to weld these ends in. So I mean, if you had to change the length on this, you could, but I don't foresee myself having to shorten those. And that's about it for the hardware. Just so you see the thickness. That is a thick boy. I don't see any reason why I can't cut that down. I mean, if I shorten it up, all it's going to do is make it harder to flex, which is kind of what you want. You know, the more flex you can take out, the better. Going off memory, because I bought this kit a few months ago and I'm too lazy to look it up. I think these kits are good for in and around 1,000 horse. And given this truck has a single leaf in the front's going to have quite a bit of side-to-side movement. So basically the only thing that's going to keep it stable is this anti-roll bar in the rear. Because with the horsepower I plan on throwing at this, with the traction it should have, I mean, if this thing launches, it's just going to throw the whole thing to the one side, which sometimes looks cool, other times looks extremely sketchy, and it is sketchy. So let's see how easy this goes together. So this kit didn't come with instructions, so it takes a little bit of figuring out when it comes to the assembly process. And each side, you know, you've got two of your arms, and then you've got a couple pieces of pipe like this. And I'm pretty sure I figured out how it goes together, having never put a kit like this together. Pretty sure that one fits in that hole, that one fits in that hole, and I think that's what they want you to do, is to tack it together like that. These two holes are smaller, they're the same size, and then this one's smaller yet, but that one is for your bolt. So I kind of threw it together, kind of mocked it up in here, just using a couple C clamps. I clamped the mounting tab to the frame, and then bolted on the bushing and just kind of set everything in place. Nothing's welded. The bolts, I don't even have nuts on the bolts at all. It's just kind of sitting there. Now luckily my axle has a flat spot on top, so these flat tabs sit on it perfect. But I ordered a 36-inch long bar, and I'm glad I did. There is a 24-inch bar that I could have got, and I'm glad I didn't, because I forgot my frame is 24 inches inside width. So I needed it to stick out past in order to make this work. My bedside is out here, so I have room, which is why I wanted this on the outside of the frame. I have some pipe to spare, so I'm going to trim off this excess off each side. I don't know if I'm supposed to have this arm right up against this bushing, but I'm going to leave a small gap on each side. But so far I'm liking the way it fits. So I'm going to trim off about 1.5 inches off each side. I am going to take some of this out, just so this arm, this whole truck's at ride height right now, and I want this to be pretty much parallel with the frame, so I want it to lay flat. So I'm gonna have to take out probably 1 inch to 1.5 inches out of this. This is all just sitting together. It's not even welded yet. So I'm gonna trim this, I'm gonna trim this, I'm gonna tack it all together, and we'll dry fit it again before welding everything in solid. Okay, so I cut 4 inches off this bar. I cut 1.75 inches off these guys. Those are just the measurements that work for my application. This is the piece I cut off, and I'm going to use it to help assemble these arms. I already took a flap disc and cleaned up everything I'm going to weld. And yeah, so I'm just going to use this cut off just to help line everything up. Now if you have a welding table like this, I just picked this up from Princess Auto, it was pretty cheap. It's nice having these holes in the table for stuff like this, where I'm going to be dropping this bolt through the heim joint just to keep everything in line, and the bolt goes through, drops through right one of these holes, so I can leave the arm laying flat on the table. There's a burr on the end of that. Like that. So I'm just going to hold that in place, and this arm I'm actually just going to weld everything in solid. I don't foresee there being a problem why I would have to tack it. I'm just going to weld it all in. The arms I will tack in, because once I get everything set back where I want on the frame, I'd rather not take it off just to weld these in. But these guys are easy enough to pull off. I can weld them in solid as long as I know they're the proper length. So just gonna start burning it in. All right, initial check. I like how everything's sitting. I've got my tabs, I've got everything squared up and level, and you can see the arm is pretty much parallel to the frame, so it's got lots of travel going up and stuff. You know, I don't want this to ever come up past the frame, because I'm gonna have basically a tonneau cover on top of this. And the last thing I want is for that to punch its way up through, even though I don't think it'll ever travel up that far. Now that the arm's a little shorter, this guy right here pretty much guarantees it's not going to hit anything. So this side, everything's laying the same. Now that I know exactly how much bar I'm gonna have sticking out past the end, right, I still have a little bit of a gap inside, I'm going to take it all apart, and I want to lay this on the table when I weld it, because the way it sits right now, one of these arms could be sitting up a little higher than the other, but I want that arm, I want everything perfectly flat. And if I take it off, I can actually put a square on it to make sure this thing is, everything's true. So right now it's a little like, that might be hot. It could be, you know, a little in or out. And I can't really get a square on it with with that bushing there. So I'm going to take it apart, weld it all together. I'm going to weld these arms solid too, now that I know that that's a good length. And then I can also weld these tabs on so they don't move. And once I get everything put back together, then I'm going to weld these tabs last. Well, I gotta say, this was one of the easier projects to do on this truck. This kit went together extremely easy, and I am thrilled with the way it turned out. The only thing that I kind of made a mistake, but I just didn't think about it, but it was very easily remedied, was when I was talking about the gap that I had between the arm and the bushing. Now, I was just gonna leave like basically 1/8 of an inch, but after you weld it, you've now used up that 1/8 of an inch. And when I tried to bolt it on, I just couldn't, because I did have this bushing bolted to the outside of this tab. So the easy fix was just moving it to the inside. So now it's got about 1/4 of an inch of space on each side, so it moves freely. And you know, like I said, very easy fix. I got lucky when I mocked it up that I had the bushings on the outside of those tabs, but like I said, I did not account for the weld, and you know, basically I got lucky. But everything else went together really easy, and you know, all in all, you can easily knock this thing out in one night, like I did. And we shouldn't have any problem with body roll now. Like that's a beefy bar. Like, I don't know if I really showed you how thick it was. If you look at the piece that I cut off, that's a thick boy. So, given this truck's not going to weigh as much as a full-size pickup, you know, that should easily handle it. And if I remember correctly, this kit from Jegs was around $340, around that. There are cheaper kits, but obviously you're giving up performance when you do that. I found that this was pretty much the cheapest kit that could handle this kind of horsepower, and like I said, it went together extremely easy. So that wraps up that kind of fabrication work in the rear end. I know in the last video I said I was gonna put the body on, but I figured this was way easier to do when I didn't have a box side in the way. So So now I guess we can do the body next time. Bye.